In this video, I want to talk to you about the composition of the AP Chemistry exam. So we're going to talk about what types of questions are on the test, how many questions are on the test, how long you'll have to answer questions or complete certain sections on the test, things of that nature. So the test is split into two sections. The first section is multiple choice. So there are 60 multiple choice questions, 4 answer choices per question, and you are provided 1 hour and 30 minutes for the multiple choice section, which comes out to 1 minute and 30 seconds per question on average. Now, you're not allowed a calculator on the multiple choice section. So this is kind of the big thing here to be aware of. So you're not allowed a calculator, but that does not necessarily mean, well, in fact it doesn't mean, that you're not going to have to do calculations. You are going to still have to do calculations, but fortunately the calculations they're designed to be done without a calculator. And I'll talk about that more in a minute, and then I'm also going to make a separate video about kind of how to do these types of problems of calculations when you don't have a calculator. And this section is half of your overall exam score. The other half, well, I forgot I had another slide here. So this slide is just talking about, we said that we don't have a calculator on the multiple choice section, so this slide is talking about some of the things you're going to have to be able to do in your head without a calculator. So you should be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide relatively simple numbers. I hope you guys know how to do that. Also going to have to, perhaps not have to, but I recommend performing calculations with numbers in scientific notation. So it's actually easier, in my opinion, if you have large or small numbers, to put them into scientific notation and then perform the calculations when you're in scientific notation. But you have to know how to be able to do that. Use exponents and roots, so square roots, cube roots, for relatively simple numbers. So with any of these, again, they're going to give you numbers that are not super complicated to do calculations with, but you still have to know how to do those calculations in your head. And then including logarithms. So you're going to need to know how to take logarithms of simple numbers. Again, they're not going to ask you something, super difficult, but you should know that the log, for example, base 10 of 1 times 10 to the negative third is -3. For example, you should know that. Now, they're not going to ask you to take the log base 10 of 2 times 10 to the negative 3, for example, because that's going to be an irrational number. Okay, so they're not going to ask you stuff with that, but 1 times 10 to the negative 3, the log of that is exactly -3. You should know that. And again, I'll make a separate video that's focusing more specifically on these types of calculations, but I want to save that for another video and just focus on the makeup of the test in this video. And then at times, so let's get rid of this. Now, in certain instances, they may give you numbers that are not as simple to work with, but generally you'll be able to, it'll be very close to a number that is easy to work with. So at times you will have to approximate, if you're given numbers that aren't as easy to work with, to convert them into numbers that are easier to work with, and you can perform these types of calculations. So Again, you'll want to make sure you know how to do these types of calculations without a calculator. You want to make sure you're practicing doing these types of calculations without a calculator, and I'll make another video focusing more specifically on those. Okay, and then the second section of the test is the free response section. And so there's a total of 7 free response questions. So this can include questions, calculations, or written responses as well. Now, to say it's 7 questions is a little bit misleading because each question, quote unquote, has multiple parts. So the first 3 questions on this section are what are called long free response questions, as opposed to short free response questions. And the long versus short, it really, it's not like you're going to be writing a longer answer per se. There's just more parts to the question. So these questions have 6 to 10 parts. At least I've looked through the last several exams that are available online, and the questions on those exams had between 6 to 10 parts. I can't 100% guarantee that all the questions on your test will, but I would assume that they will, or at least very close to that range. And on average, they're about 7 parts. So each of the long free response questions are worth 10 points, which will make a little bit more sense later. And the College Board recommends to spend 23 minutes per each of these 3 long free response questions. Now, you don't have to. So let's just put some more stuff on here so you can kind of see everything together. Okay, so we see here we have a total of 1 hour and 45 minutes for this section. So you can spend that hour and 45 minutes however you want. It's all in one bunch. You don't have to, turn in the long free response and then do the short free response. It's just you have 1 hour and 45 minutes to do all of these questions. But the long free response questions will take longer, and this is just the College Board recommendation, 23 minutes per question for the long free response, and then 9 minutes per question for the short free response questions. So that gets us to the short free response questions, of which there are 4, 2 to 4 parts each. At least that's how it was on the previous exams. And these are each worth 4 points. So basically you see that one long free response question is worth about 2.5 short free response questions, if that's of any interest to you. You don't really need, I don't think, to worry too much about that, but just for your information, that is how it's going to be scored. However, what they'll do is so they'll score each long free response question out of 10 points, score each short free response question out of 4 points, and then you'll get an overall score for your free response question, for your free response section, and that will represent the other 50% of your score, with the first 50% being the multiple choice section. Okay, and then as we see here, you are allowed a calculator on this section, unlike the multiple choice section. And you'll want to check that your calculator is permitted on the exam, but most common graphing calculators are. There's the College Board does have kind of a list of accepted calculators and then sort of calculators that are not accepted. I will leave a link to that page in the description. But if you have like a TI-84, the common TI graphing calculators, those are all permitted. You don't need a graphing calculator, but you will want a scientific calculator. So if you have like a TI-30 scientific calculator, that's a non-graphing calculator, that's permitted. In fact, I think all non-graphing calculators are permitted as long as it's not like a cell phone or something like that. But again, I'll leave a link to the College Board page that you can use to check if your calculator is acceptable. So that's the free response section. And then lastly, I want to mention the resources that you will be provided on the test, and you'll be provided this on both sections. You'll be provided a periodic table, and you'll be provided a page of constants and equations. Now for the constants and equations page, you want to make sure to look at this ahead of time. And really I would look at the periodic table ahead of time as well, though there's not really as much to see there. The main thing to note with the periodic table, and I'll show you these in a minute, but the periodic table that they give you does not have the element names. It does have the element symbols, obviously, and atomic number, atomic mass. It has all that. It just doesn't have the element names like some periodic tables do. So you just want to keep that in mind. You don't want to be surprised by that. But certainly with the constant and equation page, you definitely will want to take a look at that. I'll also leave a link to these in the description, but I'll also show you them here in a second. So the constant equation page does contain a lot, but not necessarily everything. So again, you want to really make sure you check that ahead of time, and this really goes for all AP tests that you're going to take. If there's any reference sheets provided, you're going to want to know, what is provided, and you're going to want to take a look at them in advance, so you're not surprised by anything. So let's go ahead and take a look at these real quick. Okay. Oh, so this, by the way, is the calculator page. So we see list of approved graphing calculators. So there's all these, but most of you guys probably have TI calculators, and all of these TI calculators, it says, are acceptable. And then here's a list of what's not accepted. So again, I'll leave a link in the description for that. And you'll want to take a look at that and make sure your calculator is okay to use. Okay, so here's the periodic table that you'll be provided on the test. I'll also leave a link of this. So yeah, I mean, it's a periodic table. There's not too much to see here. But again, the main takeaway is that keep in mind that they're not going to be the element names. So you'll want to make sure you have at least the common element names memorized. You don't need to memorize all of them. They're not going to ask you like the weird ones, but the main group elements and the main transition metals that you've experienced, hopefully you already have them memorized. If you've taken if you've gone through AP chemistry, you should have most of the common element names and symbols memorized, but that's just something you'll want to make sure you do because they won't be provided on the periodic table. And then here's the equation sheet, and really it's two sheets. So again, you'll just want to definitely make sure that you've taken a look at this to know what constants are going to be provided, what equations are going to be provided, things of that nature, just so you know what you need to memorize and what you don't, and you're not expecting to be provided something that turns out is not provided. And in some cases, like for example, they give you these integrated rate laws, but they don't tell you which one is which. So again, it's just a very good idea really for all your tests to take a look at these in advance and be aware of what's going to be provided to you, and maybe even if you want to, where it's going to be located on the sheet. But yeah, that is really all for this video. Just wanted to give you guys an idea of what to expect on the AP Chemistry exam. I'm going to be coming out with some more videos. I talked about how I would do a video that goes more in depth on the multiple choice calculations and some practice ones to give you a better idea of what you'll need to do and kind of just show you some examples of solving these types of problems without a calculator. But yeah, that'll be all for this video. Bye guys.